I'm Marie Lorraine. We're going to talk about B12 today, and if you're interested in how to increase your intake for B12, you found the right video. The simple answer is to just eat more animal products, like duh. But the more complicated answer, keep watching because we're going to dive in. I have my notebooks open for this. B12 is a little complicated. Let's get started. B12 is super important, and you can tell it's important by the deficiency. If you're deficient in it, there are signs and symptoms that are not very pleasing, including depression, irritability, fatigue, tingling in your feet and extremities, mood swings, glossitis, so like a really inflammation of your tongue, just a lot of like unpleasant things that aren't necessarily linked to B12. You never think, I'm depressed, maybe I need some B12. But, I mean, maybe you're just deficient in some vitamins, B12 being one of them. So who is more at risk for B12 deficiencies? Well, if you're not eating it. So vegans, vegans, if you're not eating animal products, you're probably going to be deficient in B12 unless you're supplementing. Vegetarians also might not be getting enough, as well as elderly, because your absorption of B12 kind of just dwindles as you age, which is kind of depressing. And then if you have malabsorptive issues, so if you have celiac disease, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you've gone under bariatric surgery. And this is because B12, when it's eaten and digested in the body, it goes through this wonderful pathway that's very complex that we'll get into later on in the video. And then the last reason you might be at risk for B12 deficiency is if you're on certain medications. Metformin being the most common. Metformin long-term use can decrease your B12, so if you are on metformin, definitely talk to your doctor about B12. He'll be like, oh yeah, or she'll be like, oh yeah, or your dietitian should be like, oh yeah, and they'll have a conversation about B12 with you because it's important. I mean, depression and mood swings, you know? Now we know if you're at risk for B12 deficiency, and if you are in one of those categories, keep watching because this is going to be informative. If not, keep watching because B12 is like, loves everybody, you know? You're just not that important, I guess, which is sad. Sorry. The RDA for B12 is 2.4 micrograms. So what does that look like in food? Well, I have some examples on a handy dandy chart. So if you eat 3 ounces of clams, you have 84 micrograms of B12. So science seal delivered, done. Liver has 70 milligrams. Trout has 5.4. Nutritional yeast has 2.4, we'll get into that later. Milk, 1 cup of milk has 1.2 milligrams of B12 in it, and eggs, a large boiled egg has 0.6. So it's simple, right? Just eat these foods, like 1 serving of clams, you're set, like 2 glasses of milk, you'll reach the 2.4. Unfortunately, it's like not that simple. And let me explain why. So when you're eating B12, there's something called bioavailability, which basically means how much of that nutrient you're actually absorbing. And you do not absorb 100% of the B12 that you ingest. You only absorb 50% of it. So kind of little. And then on top of that, to make it more complicated, the amount of B12 you absorb is dependent on how much you eat. So the more B12 you eat, the less you absorb. So very fun. You're going to have to do a little bit more math in order to get your amount of B12 as opposed to just eating drinking 2 glasses of milk. You might have to go for 3 or 4 to get the actual amount. And then there's a lot of other hosts and environmental factors that go into your absorption of B12, and it's just a very hard vitamin to get in, I guess. I don't know, but whatever. Your body is so good at storing it, and then through a process called intrahepatic recirculation, it basically recycles the B12 in your body really effectively up to the point where it can store B12 for 3 to 5 years. So, that being said, if you don't reach the RDA every single day, it's okay because you're going to be able to store things really well. Though I will say, just basing it off of the RDA, you might want to go a little bit higher because there's no upper limit to B12. So, I mean, reach for the stars, you might fall on the moon in regards to B12. Now, just to make things a little bit more complicated, just because I like making nutrition hard, because it is hard and I'm struggling in school, so struggle with me. When B12 is absorbed or eaten in the body, it is bound to food, and then once it's in the stomach, it's released from the food with gastric acid, and our protein binds to the B12. Then it travels down to the duodenum, and in the duodenum, pancreatic enzymes come, and then it releases the R protein from the B12, and then it gets released. And an intrinsic factor, I bet you're like wondering, like, what is intrinsic factor? Intrinsic factor comes in and binds to the B12, where it travels down to the terminal ileum, and then it gets absorbed into the body and used for all these metabolic reactions that keep you healthy and living. So, really important, but very complicated. So, my vegans and vegetarians, I was mentioning here that there is this amazing thing that I think was a gift from God for you guys. It's called nutritional yeast, and if you're a vegan or vegetarian and you do not know what nutritional yeast is, I'm going to assume that you're new to the game. Welcome, congratulations on your exciting diet change. Learn about nutritional yeast and get it in your pantry. It has 100% of the daily value, or 2.4 micrograms of the B12, which is your RDA, and all you'll need for that is 1 serving of nutritional yeast. And so you need to have this in your diet, and then also you can supplement with foods that have been fortified with B12. I'll leave some comments down below of where you can get nutritional yeast on Amazon, and then some foods that I find that are supplemented with B12, or just check out your local grocery store. And if you are not a vegan or vegetarian, venture into the world of B12, because it's something of nutrition. There's a bug on my wall. Oh, it's a fly. Venture into the world of nutritional yeast, because you can just sprinkle some nutritional yeast on your food and get some extra B12, because, like, why not? Okay, so those are the food sources. If you want to do it the natural way and be like, well, I am all natural and I get my vitamins from food. But I mean, if you want to supplement, like, I hear you, it's fine. Like, supplements are not death. You just have to be smart about it and know if a supplement will actually help you. Because if you are unable to properly absorb B12, you'll be taking it and you'll be wasting your money, essentially, except for there is a catch. So 1% of B12 that you ingest is absorbed passively, which is really nice because it doesn't have to go through all that complicated system. So it doesn't have to go through all the complicated systems of your digestive system to get into your bloodstream and start making magic in your cells. So in that case, if you are treated with a B12 deficiency, or in clinical practice when a B12 deficiency arises, they give B12 intramuscularly, just with an IV, and they just stick it in you, and then it goes into your cells and it starts making magic. Or you can take an oral supplement that is 1,000 micrograms. And then 1% of 1,000 micrograms, 1% of 1,000 micrograms is only one microgram of B12, and the RDA is 2.4. So it's 2,000 micrograms, or 2 grams of B12 they'll give you. You'll put that under your tongue, and then 1% of that will be absorbed, and that's 2 micrograms of B12, which is really close to the RDA, and then they'll keep you on that regimen for a while until your serum levels improve and certain lab values like MMA improve, like things you don't really need to know, will improve, and then help you, and then your stores will be more adequate. And then depending on like what problem you have with your digestive system, you'll probably have to be on that regimen for the rest of your life. Otherwise, you're going to suffer from like depression and mood swings and possible like irritability and megaloblastic anemia. Yeah, anemia is also another one. Did not mention that before, but there's a lot of things that, you know, happens when you don't have B12. So that's why you got to be, you know, mindful when you supplement. And if you do choose a supplement, I mean, I have to recommend as a diet technician that you like should talk to a dietitian or a diet technician or your doctor before you dive into supplements, because you just don't want to waste your money. So it's worth that conversation to see like what will work for you and if you even need it, because you could be eating 25% of your calories from dairy products, eggs, fish, meat, or poultry. So you like, why buy B12 if you're fine and your digestive system's working wonderfully? I hope this helped. Eat more animal products, or eat nutritional yeast, or supplements. Wow, that was a really simple answer, but as you know, it's pretty complex, so do some thinking. If you are curious about the resources I use for this video, they are linked in the description below, so you can actually read the full article. If you want to geek out and be like a little nerdy and be like, what is this girl talking about? The information is down there below. It's all evidence-based. Thank you very much. And then also check out my other videos on nutrition. Like this video if this was helpful for you, and if you like this depth of information on vitamins, and I will keep posting them. If you're like, oh, this is too much, like, let me know, and I will adjust my knowledge that I'm giving out to you in a way that hopefully will help you eat healthier. All right. Yeah, I'll see you in my next video.